Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about what has become, surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, I don't know, a hot button topic over the past weekend, I would say, because this article came out recently from Flesh and Blood creators, Legend Story Studios on the Fab TCG website, talking about the Pro Tour New Jersey. Pro Tour #1, and they talked about like just overall what this whole process is going to look like, and what the battle hardened on Sunday was going to look like, and Saturday and Sunday the just overall calling stuff, and then of course the Pro Tour actual event, how to register for it, and that sort of thing. And then when you scroll down, you get this incredible looking card. Okay, this card right here, Yorick, Weaver of Tales, is going to be given to literally everyone that attend the event, period. Just everybody that shows up to this event. Doesn't matter if you're entered into the Pro Tour, the Calling, the Battle Hardened. If you show up and you buy one of these packages, you're getting a Yorick. And yes, this is a double-sided hero that is going to be in cold foil, a la the Bravo star of the show that we found in Everfest, okay? And if you didn't read the card, I'll read it for you. Yorick, Weaver of Tales is a Bard hero young. People have been clamoring for Bard since we knew we were going to Aria, and me included. I've wanted a Bard since the moment we found out we were going to Aria. I kind of thought that we would see a Bard in the main set. Yorick here has 4 intellect and 20 health. And his effect says this: at the start of the game, all heroes shuffle their starting decks together. All heroes share the same deck and graveyard this game. And then I do want to point this out. It has some fantastic lore text on it. It says, a story of legend is said to be told. The dawn of a new age, a sight to behold. From all corners of Wraith, heroes they come. The common language they speak was that of great games. Okay, so this is a really cool card, and I will say right now, what I'm about to say could touch a nerve, and you could disagree with me completely, and that's okay. I know discourse on the internet is difficult. It is. It's very tough to go into the comment section and read someone's comment and know what tone they meant by it, to know the heart behind what they're talking about. So I understand if what I'm about to say touches a nerve and we wanted to have a more personal conversation, that's totally fine. But I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below with this statement. And this is my true belief on this card. I think Yorick, Weaver of Tales, is the perfect card for Flesh and Blood. There has never been, and there probably never will be, a more perfect encapsulation of the game of Flesh and Blood than in this card. And it's funny because the moment this card was spoiled, people inside the community and outside of the community immediately began hating it. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. Here's the other thing. It is okay to have your personal opinions on this card. That is totally valid. That is totally understandable. You are 100% allowed to hate this card. But I'm going to challenge you to meet me in the middle and hear what I have to say, because I think this is literally the perfect card for Flesh and Blood. The first and probably the biggest sticking point for most people is mechanically with this card. Okay, I think there's also a lot of people that perhaps in the community that look at this and they go, I wanted a Bard that did something that I could play, that I could, like play in Blitz or in Classic Constructed. I wanted a card that if you're going to print a card, give us someone that we can like use to the fullest. Totally understand that as well. Totally get that where you're coming from. So I get all of those mechanical ideas, and we'll talk about those more at the end. But I want to tell you why this card is perfect first, and then from that point, we can have a jumping off point about the mechanics of said card. Okay, first of all, I think we can all agree that playing wonderful card games and that loving the game of Flesh and Blood, most likely, is something that's high on your agenda. You enjoy this game. I think we can all say that if you are watching this channel, you enjoy card games in general. Just straight up. I think we can agree, if you're watching this, you probably enjoy card games to some degree. So from that basis, I would also posit that Legend Story Studios does as well. They love card games. James White, the creator of the game, loves card games. And it's evident with the creation of this card. Because this card it's not just a game piece. That's the way to say it. This is the icon of everything that Legend Story Studios stands for. All the way down, through and through. Everything about this card highlights one of the tent poles of Flesh and Blood and Legend Story Studios as a company. Everything about it. There's not a single thing on this card that doesn't, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Okay, so let's break it down. First of all, just looking at the card, this is a beautiful piece of art. Beautiful piece of art. Flesh and Blood and Legend Story Studios have always, from the very beginning of the game, just said that one of the standards of this game is that it's going to have fantastic art. It is going to be aesthetically beautiful. Aesthetics is what drew me to this game in October of 2019, when the game released, right before the game released. I saw how cool and how beautiful the art was for Dorinthia, and I said, I need to click on that advertisement on Facebook. Okay, this card is very much in that same line. It is a beautiful card, and not only that, they chose to go all out with Yorick, Weaver of Tales. They didn't just print it double-sided. They printed it double-sided with the signature thing, the signature foiling style, cold foil, double-sided cold foil. Okay, there is nothing that says Flesh and Blood more than cold foil. Straight up, like, name me something that is more Flesh and Blood than cold foil. You can go to people that don't play Flesh and Blood, and you can talk about cold foils and show them cold foils, and they will point to that as a tent pole of like, wow, that looks incredible. That is something I want to see more of. Cold foiling, just in general, is something that is done in Magic the Gathering as well, and I'm sure other card games do it as well, but not like Flesh and Blood does it, and not like Yorick, Weaver of Tales. So aesthetically, this card is beautiful. That's one. Two, and this is why I read the lore text at the bottom. The number one thing, look, I could even just straight up go to it on their website. The number one thing that Legend Story Studios stands for and works towards is bringing people together in the flesh and blood under the common language of great games. Okay, so they literally took their creed and they stamped it on a card in cold foil, which is hilariously audacious to me and also just perfect. Okay, it's perfect. This is what Legend Story Studios has been striving to do since October of 2019. Bring people together with a fantastic game so that you can enjoy said game with your friends, with your family, with people you've never met before or can't even speak the same language as you. But I can play a card down and they can understand it in their language because they remember what that effect does. And we can have a conversation via a card game. Okay? There's a lot of things in life that do the same thing. Food, music, these are universal things that people can understand and interface with. Legend Story Studios says card games too. I have a hard time arguing with that. This card represents exactly that ideal, because if you actually do choose to sit down and play with this, it forces every single person at the table to play together in a way that is impossible otherwise. And there's going to be a lot of people that absolutely hate that. And that's fine too, again, because people want to play the deck that they want to play, sure. But from a high concept point of view, this card is literally the perfect card for bringing people together from all corners of the world in the common language of playing a great game. There is not 4 or 5 decks at the table. There's one deck at the table, and everyone is brought together through the power of song. Because this sick bard, look at him go. Look at all those people in the background dancing. This is literally, I'm telling you, it's the perfect card for Flesh and Blood. And look, it doesn't even stop there. Because yes, it can be played fundamentally. But also, what this is another thing that a lot of people were drawn to the game from. This is a collector's piece. Probably more so than a game piece. This is art on a card that is only available in one location, on one weekend, in one point in history, and then lost forever. Okay, I talked to some people. Any of the unused Yorick Weaver of Tales after the weekend is over are going to be destroyed, going to be shredded or burned. So if you end up with this little piece of history being given out at Pro Tour #1, the culmination of everything Flesh and Blood has been working towards, the creation of a major worldwide pro scene that literally brings people together through the internet and face-to-face in person to play great games. If you go to that event, you get this card to remember that event. If you don't, you can still have the memories of watching it on stream, but you may not have the card, which is all of a sudden just going to be a collectible piece. Straight up. That's what it is. So it's a collectible piece. It's a piece of art. It is an icon of everything that the company stands for. And again, this is why I argue that this card's perfect. At least perfect for Flesh and Blood. Now, if you can understand and if you've stuck it out all 12.5 minutes of this video so far to this point, now we can talk about the mechanics of this card, because I would argue that this is not really a card to be played regularly, and it's more of a representation of this creation of the game coming into its own. I would argue it's more that, but if you want to talk mechanics, let's talk mechanics. It's okay to not want to play this at the table, or to not want to play into this at the table. It's fine. I want to point this out. This card is not actually allowed to be played in Blitz. It can't be played in Blitz. It can't be played in constructed formats. It can't be officially played in a sanctioned event because it's not part of a retail release. It can't be played. It's the same thing with Go Bananas. But where it can be played is currently in Ultimate Pit Fight, which is the multiplayer format. Now, I'm just going to say this right now. I know in Magic the Gathering, and I only know this to a certain degree, and I'm sure there's tons of people watching this right now that could probably tell me way more about Magic the Gathering than I know, because I don't know much about Magic the Gathering in the grand scheme of things, certainly not in relation to Flesh and Blood. So if you know more, tell me in the comments below, because you are probably way more well-versed. You could probably give me a ton of knowledge, and I would love that. That'd be fantastic. Tell me more, please. Commander, the multiplayer format for Magic the Gathering, is inherently, from what I surmise, is inherently a casual format, but can also be played competitively now, or perhaps played competitively for a while. Okay? UPF, which is Flesh and Blood's multiplayer format, does not have a competitive scene. In fact, it's got a very fledgling casual scene, and I think it's highly underrated as far as being just played in general. In fact, we've been playing bi-weekly to monthly UPFs, me and several of my friends. You should watch them on this channel or on their channels. It is probably one of the most fun ways to play the game. Inherently, it's casual, okay? It's you bringing together your friends. It's not you going to an LGS and wrestling out 4 or 5 other people to sit down and then competitively crush. It's not. Okay, there's not sanctioned tournaments for like, okay, you win, $200 at this LGS for winning your UPF, tournament. That doesn't exist yet. Now it could, sure, maybe, but it doesn't exist right now. Right now, UPF looks like Ultimate Pit Fight looks like you meeting up at the kitchen table or at the LGS with your good friends, with your family, with people that you're just meeting for the first time, but with the intent of having fun. And yes, someone is going to win. Someone could come to the table and win. And this is kind of where Commander, again, we come back to Commander in Magic the Gathering. There will always be people that are competitive in nature, and that's totally cool too. I like winning. I want to win, but I don't necessarily prioritize that over the having fun of the group. There are people that would always want to win. Cool. In Commander, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, there is a very real and palpable conversation to be had about Rule 0, which is talking to your friends about what you want to have in this game that would have fun and what you want as deal breakers that would not have fun. And then avoiding the things that could be deal breakers, setting the stage so everyone agrees on what you would enjoy and what you, sort of the parameters of the game, and everyone's deck is on a similar power level, etc., etc. This is a perfect Rule 0 card. If someone sits down and says, hey, I don't want to play against Yorick, Weaver of Tales, because for me, I've been thinking about this deck. I want to see how it plays out. I don't want to just cram everything together and lose out on that experience. Done. If someone has Yorick, Weaver of Tales, they swap it out. Because again, it doesn't have to be, I'm going to see someone play this at my LGS and they're going to flip it over and I'm going to scoop and I'm going to walk out. That's literally not... I don't think anybody in the world right now does that with UPF. Like, shows up and, like, looks for their like, just local players that might be playing UPF. That doesn't exist right now. So it's actually impossible to do. But if you're coming from a Magic background, you may think that that's something you would see. That's not the case with this card. Okay, there's not a bunch of people that are just looking for like pickup Commander games, or in this case, pickup UPF games at the local game store. This is literally to be played with friends and to be Rule 0'd out. So if that's the issue, if the issue is you don't want people touching your cards, which is actually really valid in a global pandemic that we've experienced for the past 2 years, if that's the issue, cool. You Rule 0 it. But don't let that one mechanical fact about this card that you may dislike let you be just occluded. Don't let that just disguise the fact that this card is an icon for the game of Flesh and Blood, and it is very much a physical representation of what the game has achieved to this point and what it strives to achieve going forward. That's all. I've said my piece. That's kind of what I've gotten at. Yes, there's always going to be people that don't like this card because of mechanically what it does. I think it's going to be absolutely hilarious to play. I would also argue that there is one other format that you could play this in, and it's one that hasn't released yet. This would actually be kind of crazily good, perhaps, in PvE, where you could basically just allow other people access to powerful cards that they couldn't normally get, and you could have some crazy combos inherently in the game that would set you up to win against a common enemy, perhaps played by another player, or perhaps like is an automaton that you play against with a friend. This is also a great PvE card. I think it's actually going to be a great UPF card. There's people that say that this takes the strategy out of UPF. Oh my god, I vehemently disagree with that. In fact, this gives you way more strategy because now you have to play with other people's cards, make it work, and politic your way out of bad situations. This card's insanely good for that. I mean, I could talk about this card for a very long time, and I probably shouldn't because I've already been rambling for 19.5 minutes. So that's my piece on Yorick, Weaver of Tales. This is how I feel about the card. Am I wrong? Am I way off base? Let me know in a comment below. Do you disagree? Do you agree? I don't know. I want to know, though. This is how I feel about it. I know there's a lot of people in and out of the community that feel differently, and that's okay if I'm in the minority. But that's what I have to say. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it illuminating, enlightening, or anything like that, look, you can make a number go to a number by pressing a button. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.